Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, you see, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we take time to take some live questions. However, many times we don't have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered in a video, so I gather them up and we address them here on companion videos. Now, this is kind of a different one. You see, sometimes we don't have time to get around all the questions that get sent in, but sometimes something out of the ordinary happens. Well, yesterday on the 4th of July, we were doing, many of you know this already, but we were doing the John Campea Show, and as we were getting near the end of the show, the earthquake hit. And we put a video up of that and everything, but an earthquake hit and we had to end the show a little bit early, so there were still some unanswered questions. So here on July the 5th, we're getting around to answering those questions that we did not have a chance to get around to answering before. So let's not waste any time and start getting caught up right now. And we're going to start things off with Dropkick Aggie, who writes, loved Far From Home, action great, humor great. I agree. I actually think the action, while Far From Home isn't my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, I think the action was the best action we've ever had in a Spider-Man film. One of the funniest, not the funniest, but one of the funniest as well. Just a good, solid quality movie. I really enjoyed it as well. Doug Harris writes, love Divine and Pink Flamingos, drag queen for Ursula. Well, the other day, Chris mentioned, we were talking about the Melissa McCarthy casting, and I can't remember if it was Chris or Aaron that brought up that they were really kind of hoping to see a drag queen play the role, which would have been interesting. Of course, I actually do like the casting of Melissa McCarthy, but we'll see how that all turns out. Tito Machado writes, Chris with the Cap t-shirt just made me love her even more. My favorite hero. I even have a tattoo of him on my forearm. We'll show you on Twitter, Chris. Yeah, so Chris Carr, who was on the show yesterday, she was sporting her Captain America. I mean, Aaron was in with her red, white, and blue earrings. Everybody was getting into the spirit of the 4th of July, and Chris was one of them as well. And she was rocking a pretty sweet Captain America shirt. And that's pretty cool that you got a Cap tattoo. He is my personal favorite character in the MCU. Not my favorite comic book character, but my favorite character in the MCU is Captain America. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, Little Mermaid is the first movie I saw in theater at age 5, so it's always been dear to me, and I love this casting. Well, of course, we're talking about the casting of Halle Bailey. I keep wanting to say Halle Berry, but it's Halle Bailey. You guys know my thoughts on this. The race of the person cast for it is completely irrelevant because mermaids are mythological, not real creatures. I'm still uncertain about the casting, though. To me, I think the casting should have been an actress first, singer second, like they did with Anne Hathaway in Les Mis. She won an Academy Award for that. Like they did for Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor in Moulin Rouge, and that worked out great. Instead, they made the choice to go singer first, actor second. I'm not real comfortable with that, but hey, I'll give it a chance. See how it works out. But you know, if we're just evaluating what we think about the casting, I'm not real big on the casting, but it has nothing to do with the ethnicity of the character because that don't matter. All right, next up, Jeremy Sneed writes, surgery was a success. Oh, that's right. I remember you wrote in the other day saying you were going in for surgery. Surgery was a success. Thanks for wishing me luck. Greatly appreciated. Shazam, second time. So great. First of all, I'm so glad you came through your surgery. Second of all, completely in agreement with you. It's such a charming superhero movie. It's a very different superhero movie from the general superhero movies we get these days. And I love the general superhero movies we get these days, but there's something really different and special about Shazam to me that has just really made me appreciate it on a different level. I'm not saying it's my favorite superhero movie of the last few years. I'm not saying that, but I really do appreciate it. Totally charming film, and I'm glad you liked it, Jeremy. And once again, congratulations on getting through the surgery successful, man. All right. Isaac Majid writes, one of my redhead friends grew up with and identifies with Ariel. She loves that character and was disappointed with the casting. Is there anything else I can tell her other than mermaids aren't real? Well, I guess what I would say, to something like that, if you're redhead and you're looking for somebody who's a redhead to be cast, I guess what I'd say is, I hate to break it to you, Hugh Jackman doesn't really have metal claws coming out of his hands. Sorry. He's just an actor who pretends he's somebody who has metal claws coming out of his hands. Again, it's not an important thing to it, but a lot of people got first of all, almost everybody was angry when they cast Hugh Jackman. But one of the big reasons was Hugh Jackman is, 6'2 plus. They wanted a Wolverine who's 5'2", 5'3". which you weren't going to find many of anyway. But, so, to me, Thor, he doesn't really summon a magical hammer to his head. Like Chris Hemsworth, and he's sitting around, in Australia on his beach house. When he reaches out his hand, a magical hammer doesn't fly to it. He's an actor that plays something that he's not really in real life. So what they choose to do with Ariel, they may make Ariel have red hair, for all we know, in the movie, but it's completely irrelevant. The actors are people who play things that they are not. Actors are people who pretend to be something that they are not in front of the camera. So it really makes no difference. To me, it's completely irrelevant whether they get somebody with red hair or not red hair or whatever. So it's not a big deal. Sometimes it's important because it's important to the nature of who and what the character is. But there's nothing in The Little Mermaid other than what you see visually. There's nothing in The Little Mermaid that makes the color of her hair important to the story. There's nothing in The Little Mermaid that suggests the pigmentation of her skin is important to the story. There's nothing in the movie that suggests that. Therefore, go in a different direction if you want. It's not important to the story. And so what I would say to one of your friends who's a redhead is, number one, don't give up on the idea that they might have the character be a redheaded character still. But even if they don't, again, Hugh Jackman doesn't have metal claws coming out of his hands. Chris Hemsworth doesn't have a magical hammer flying to him. Christoph Waltz is not actually a Jew hunter as he portrays in Inglourious Bastards. Actors are just playing things that they're not in real life, and it's part of the magic of movies, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. Again, there are times when that's different. I just don't believe that this is one of those times, for me personally, but that's just my take on it. Other people have other takes, and everybody's opinion is completely as legitimate as mine, but that is just my take on it. But thanks for that, Isaac. All right. Ninja Gregg writes, happy 4th of July, everybody. Again, remember, these questions came in yesterday on the 4th of July. Chris and Aaron are awesome add-ons, John. What are your thoughts on Netflix adding ads to its movies? Is this rumor true? Thanks. Okay, I do not think it's true. Let me just pull up something here for a second. Netflix ads on movies. I don't think there's anything to it. I don't really think there's anything to it. I know there were some rumors and speculation going around. Here's the thing to me, though. One of the things that I think could work is if you created a Netflix tier that was, say, $5 a month and had some ads. You save $12 on the more expensive subscription. You only pay like $5. But to compensate for that, you get ads. So you as a customer, you're getting something for that, right? You're getting something for having a couple of ads. You get charged less money for the Netflix service. So you're getting something for the ads. What I don't think they can do or should do is keep everything as it is in Netflix and just introduce ads. That would create a revolt, I think. What I as a consumer would probably be okay with is a commercial at the beginning of a movie. That I could live with. Now, I'm not speaking for you, I'm only speaking for me. For me, if Netflix were, because they're cash strapped, whatever, I don't think it's a good idea, but what I would be within acceptable ranges for me is if one commercial played at the beginning of the movie. So if I go to Netflix and click on to watch Always Be My Maybe, and there's a 30-second spot before the movie plays, but no spots interrupt the movie because I'm paying for this damn thing. Not ideal, but I think I could live with it. And I suspect there are probably a lot of consumers that could live with that. Like if Netflix were to say, hey, we are going to introduce at the outset of a program, one commercial before the movie starts. This will help us moving forward to refrain from having further increases in our pricing models for at least a couple of years. I think the majority of consumers would probably not like it, but be okay with it, not cause a mass exodus of people ditching their Netflix. And Netflix has a hell of a lot of good stuff. So ads throughout a movie, revolt. One ad beginning of the movie, pitched in such a way that this will help us not raise prices again for a few years, that Not happy, but I think people will accept it. What do you guys think about that? Jump down in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. Venkat writes, can Feige, I assume you mean Kevin Feige, be called the greatest genre producer of all time, or is there someone else better in your opinion? It's hard to say. Right now, it's hard to say. Kevin Feige is just in the midst. He's only in his 40s. He's in the midst of still doing his career right now. And it really depends on your definition. Like, look, everybody today is what's happening right now. Whatever's happening right now is the greatest thing ever right now. And so there is a little bit of that, and I think we have to be cognizant of that. Right now, Marvel movies are hot. So I get it. We're asking if Kevin Feige is the greatest genre producer because it's what's happening right now, and everything that's happening right now is the best. That's what we do. I do it, you do it, we all do that. But I think there is a legitimacy to the conversation. But once you start talking about genre, well, what genre? You know, does that include horror genre? Because I think some horror fans might want to put forward some names that would be considered better genre producers than Kevin Feige. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying that. Are we including all sci-fi? Some people might want to bring up some other names other than Kevin Feige. But I mean, I think it's impossible to say that Kevin Feige's name wouldn't be in the conversation. Of course it would be. I'll say this. Even understanding that we live in everything that's right now is the best thing ever kind of a context right now, or that's kind of seems to be our cultural sway, is that everything right now is the best thing ever. Even though we are in that, and I understand that, I got to imagine it's going to be tough not to say that Kevin Feige might be the best genre producer after a few more years. It's in the conversation right now, and maybe you could say it is right now. But for now, I'm just going to say, I think if we had this discussion in 5 or 10 years, it's very difficult not to imagine that his name isn't going to be the name that pops up on top. When you just consider, now his films are getting Academy Award nominations, right? So that used to be a big hurdle. Maybe an argument against Kevin Feige, but his things they're not excellence. They're not excellence in the overall filmmaking thing. But guess what? Now his films are also getting Academy Award nominations. It's not just box office. Now it's actually Academy Award nominations. So using that as an excuse is getting wiped away too. So when you consider fan approval, critic approval, box office, all those check marks or all those check boxes are marked. And now you're starting to add in top of that, he's accumulating Academy Award nominations for his films too. Again, I think in 5 years, it's really going to be tough not to say the name Kevin Feige. We'll just have to wait and see. Good question. Raymond Lopez writes, best anime of all time, One Piece. I'm not familiar with it. Then again, like I said, I'm the wrong guy to ask. I'm not big into anime. There's a few that I really like, but I'm not really big into it. And that's actually one I've never heard of. Interesting. All right. Venkat follows up with, happy 4th of July from a resident alien. Sorry, got to say that. I am spending my money on this show. Nothing more happy for me than to discuss art. Well, thank you for that, Venkat. Thanks for being here. Thank you for contributing your insights and your questions as well. And thank you for supporting the channel, man. I really appreciate it. As a resident alien myself, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. All right. Next up, Suthius writes, hey, Mr. Campea, Donnie Yen's bottle cap challenge is legit. Yeah, I put this up on my social media the other day because I saw somebody else shared it. Everybody's doing the bottle cap challenge right now. Kick the bottle cap and get it to spin off the bottle. Jason Statham had a great one. Max Holloway's got a great one. A bunch of people have them. Anyway, Donnie Yen has the best one. Donnie Yen Ip Man himself puts on a blindfold and does it. Boss. And it helps that he's wearing a Toronto Raptors shirt while he's doing it. But yes, absolute boss, Donnie Yen. That one was great. Suthius writes again, not sure about you, but I have Suthius tingle. I'm not going to discuss that because we'll be getting into something on a movie we shouldn't be talking about right now. All right, Chris Feldman writes, Kentucky Fried Movie was by the Airplane Riders. Somebody brought up this film the other day. Maybe it was you, Chris. Kentucky Fried Movie. I have never seen it. Confession, I've never even heard of it. But apparently it was also by the same guys who did Airplane, which is probably the greatest spoof movie of all time. That's fascinating. That's very interesting to know. Suthius writes, call it a guilty pleasure. I like You Got Served. We'll call it a guilty pleasure. But you know what, Suthius, in your defense, I know a couple people actually quite like that movie. I'm not a big You Got Served fan. I'll admit I'm not. But you, sir, are not alone. because I know a few people that are kind of big into that movie, so you're not alone. GJR87 writes, did you play hockey? I'm Canadian. It's a genetic law that I play hockey. Of course I played hockey. Anyway, did you play hockey? What position, if so? Left defense for me. Like the best team player ever is Vladimir Konstantinov. Vladimir Konstantinov, who played his entire career, by the way, with one team. That doesn't happen a lot in professional sports. He played his entire career with the Detroit Red Wings. Tragically had his career cut short because his limousine driver hit a tree. And there were other players in the car with him that you know, one of his fellow guys in the car with him, she got another Russian player, got to come back and play next year. Unfortunately, Konstantinov ended up in a wheelchair. He ended up paralyzed as a result of it. But the Detroit Red Wings still consider him part of the team. I remember the following year they won the Stanley Cup. And as the tradition goes, when a team wins the Stanley Cup, they skate in circles around the rink, each taking turns carrying the cup. And they brought, if I remember it right, they brought Vladimir out on the ice in his wheelchair and had him go around in the victory lap with him. Really touching stuff. I played right defense and right wing is what I played. I always wanted to be a goalie. But I never had the gear, and I never wanted to ask my parents to get it for me. Because even as a little kid, I knew goalie gear was really expensive. But yeah, I played a bunch of defense and played right wing. And that's what I played. So, did you play hockey? I'm Canadian. Of course I did. It's a law. It's a genetic law in Canada. You're born, they slap skates on you. There you go. All right, Suthius writes, she's not white. Disney is ruining my childhood. Or this isn't this, or isn't that, on and on and on. I'm sick of it. I really am. It gets old. It really does get old. And you know what's nice? If there's anything nice to be found here, what's nice is this. I think generally people are starting to get sick of it. I think generally I'm starting to get people are getting tired of this whole you cast a black person, you do this. You cast a white person to play that. You cast a whatever. I'm starting to sense that people in general are getting tired of it. It's like, I feel like common sense is starting to win out. Because I think if this Little Mermaid casting had happened a year or two ago, I think the backlash that we saw would have been much greater. But I think common sense is starting to win. Now, granted, we're still seeing a lot of backlash about it. And again, I'm not happy with the casting either, but I'm not happy with the casting because I don't like that they're going with a singer first, actor second. I think they should go with an actor first, singer second. I would have liked somebody with a little bit more experience because there are young, white, black, Asian, whatever actors who have a little bit more spotlight experience to carry a big major film like a Little Mermaid, whatever. But, you know, not liking it or complaining about it or screaming about it because the actress is black instead of white when it's a freaking mermaid, who cares? I'm starting to sense that common sense is starting to win out. Because again, I just feel like this outrage or whatever backlash would have been maybe twice as bad a year and a half ago as opposed to now. So I think maybe we're heading in the right direction. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right. Nick writes, one of two. In his absence, what do you think are the big decisions the Disney company have made that Walt Disney would disagree with if he were alive today? I couldn't possibly answer that question. I'm not a Walt Disney historian. I do not know. The company's a very different company now today than it was back then, so I have no idea whatsoever. None. I'm completely unqualified to even have a guess at that because I just don't know much about Walt Disney, the man himself, so I can't answer that. Two. For example, I think he'd be less concerned with turning the film industry into his personal monopoly and more focused on making children happy. That's a wonderful fairy tale you live in, Nick. Walt Disney was a businessman about making money. Yes, he liked doing other things too, but are you going to sit here and tell me, Nick, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't making billions of people happy around the world? And giving excitement and joy to hundreds of millions of children around the world? Are you really going to try to make that argument with me? Because it's an argument you can't win, sir. It's an argument you can't win. Look, every company tries, no matter what industry they're in, be it a car industry, jeans, movies, computers, air conditioners, toy figures, trophy manufacturing, lights, cameras, curtains, doors, home builders, whatever. Every company always seeks ways to grow and to expand what they can do and accomplish. Every company strives to do that. Every company does. The fact that some start to do it better than others, Disney a number of years ago saw an opportunity that we could do some really cool things if we purchased Marvel. Marvel is a struggling company. If we purchase them, we think there's some really cool things we could do. And we think we can make some really great movies that people will flock to and love and adore, and will make money for the company. It is a business. Whatever fairy tale land we try to convince ourselves we live in, where companies don't do it to make the money, sure they do. You can do good and make money. But this notion of, he would be less concerned with turning the film industry into his personal monopoly. You see that. I just see a company seeing opportunities to increase what they're doing, and they take advantage of it. And if you don't think Walt Disney was about that, then you know even less about Walt Disney than I did. Then you know even less about Walt Disney than I did. So I got to completely because just like what little I do know, read up about Disney and his land acquisitions. Read up about Disney and how he obtained some of his IP and the legal battles that he went through. He was a creative genius. He brought a lot of joy to people, but he was also a businessman and tried to increase the portfolio and the domain of his empire. Of course he did. That's what all companies do. Nothing wrong with that. But this notion that he'd be more focused on making children happy. How do you think he's going to do that? By increasing what they do, by having broader appeal, by doing more things that appeal to more people. And that's good for business. So again, if you're going to try to make the argument to me that Disney hasn't brought a lot of happiness and joy to hundreds of millions of children around the world with their MCU, or with their Pixar films, another company they acquired and helped develop. If you're going to try to tell me that, then you're in a no-win fight, sir. You're just absolutely in a no-win situation. So I got to disagree with you. All due respect to you, my film-loving brother, you have a certain point of view on it, and I respect that it's different than mine. But since you're asking me, I'm going to give you my honest answer. My honest answer is, I think that's a ludicrous concept. I think that's ludicrous. Of course, Walt Disney himself, just read about him. I mean, I hardly know anything about Disney, but just read up some of the basic things about land acquisition, how he got about the business of building Disneyland, about some of the properties that they built. It's the story of a businessman. The story of Walt Disney is the story of a businessman who did some amazing things, also had some really big controversy around his life. But, this notion that he wouldn't, had he been alive today, that he wouldn't have purchased Marvel when it was an opportunity to do so and do some really great things, I don't think there's any justification for that assertion. Do you think Walt Disney wouldn't if he had the opportunity to acquire a Pixar and develop into what it's been able to develop into today? I don't see any justification for that. So I got to disagree with you completely on that, Nick. Again, maybe you're right and maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see anything there that can back that up. All right. Venkat Ram writes, one of two. I've been watching / listening to you for probably around 7 to 8 years. Thank you so much, Venkat. Since back I was in India. We fans and nerds fall into our own category of species. Just kidding. I always had an image in my head since I left that if I get here and be at Comic-Con at some point, I would meet you and Schnepp and call that episode of my life as Meet the Johns. I submit to spell checkers. Though I did not know Schnepp personally, I miss him dearly. On that note, are there plans for meet and greet at Comic-Con or otherwise? Yes, I will be doing a meet and greet at Comic-Con. I still haven't figured out my plans for it yet, but I will be doing that at some point. And of course, you bring up Schnepp. Comic-Con marks the anniversary when it was made official that Schnepp had passed away as a result of his condition. And I still remember it was, there were some of us who knew already. Like before I went to Comic-Con, I already knew. And there were a number of people who already knew. But it was when I was at Comic-Con, I had just done the Masters of the Web panel, and Rob was moderating that panel for me. And he and I walked out of the panel, outside, looked at our phones, and there was the official word that they had made it public that John had passed away as a result of his condition. It was a hard moment. And like I said, some of us were lucky that we knew in advance and we were ready for that. But just when it was made public, it just kind of became official. And so it's going to be a bittersweet, I think, experience for a lot of people at Comic-Con this year, marking the 1-year anniversary of the passing of John Schnepp, who was the king of the Shweddies, the best of us all. And yeah, it's a big thing. It's a shame you never had a chance to meet him. It's a shame you never had a chance to meet him. He was larger than life. He really was. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion video. Thank you so much for being here, come along, and thank you to all you guys for sending in those questions. Sorry we didn't have a chance to answer them on Friday's show, but you know, earthquake. But again, thank you for sending them in, not just because you gave us fun things to talk about, but whether the things we agreed with or disagree with, like on Nick's message. It's just great that you send this in. We can have different points of view. We can discuss them from different levels. Say, you're crazy at each other. I think that's great. I think it's a lot of fun. But also, by sending in those questions, you guys support the channel, and I thank you for that deeply. Rob thanks you. Ray thanks you. Jonathan thanks you. Chris thanks you. Aaron thanks you. So thank you guys for all of that deeply. All right, guys, listen. Tomorrow, the Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler discussion. I said I moved it to Saturday at 3 p.m. I've adjusted that again to 2 p.m. to give us an extra hour. So the Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler discussion will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. There will not be an open mic tomorrow. I made the decision that it would be too many hours in my weekend being taken up. So tomorrow there will be no open mic, and I'll put up an announcement up so everybody knows about this. But 2 p.m. tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time, the Spider-Man Far From Home open spoiler discussion. I hope you guys will join us for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for joining us. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.